Cheers, lads.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers. Cheers, boys.
Thanks, boys.
Geez, an hour and a half of balls, bro.
Ed,
Holy. What's
Bro,
that?
you know what I actually liked about that is that we didn't actually talk about the same thing, despite our MAUL always looking the same.
yeah, bro. I was thinking the same thing, bro. This, like, as in,
Talk about different things, but we actually did.
that's what I wanted to, like, just not only have, like, when we were coming up or whatever, I didn't want to have my opinion on it. Like, you saw, like, some of those little details that you guys saw, and you go, fuck, yeah, I didn't even see that bit. And you saw from another angle and like that. So it was mean. I actually got a lot out of that.
Mate, if you're just an average Joe checking that out, and just if you happen to stumble across it, however, like, that's going to be gold. Like, because there's a lot of, we didn't even go through all the little detail about, like, all that stuff, and that can be like how to set up a MAUL or something like that. But
yeah, exactly. Well, I think that one was just mainly about the mindset of it. What tactics, you know, some inside tactics that that comes from our sort of, you know, review and analysis throughout the week, and just to give someone a bit of that type of insight on it.
Bro, because it's literally something that you could, if you can create a dominant MAUL, bro, you got so many guys down in like lower grades or whatever that can do that well. Right? Yeah. And you could, you know, like
every grade
at
here, you score.
Oh, bro,
you're scoring tries.
Yeah.
Nick Minute.
Shuffle this shit back.
Got me cruising through the back streets, no more solo athletes. The ones that for the peaks, cause them ladies tryna catch me, snatch me, grab me, they trying to harass me. Still all up in the hood, free the boys through the O3 peaks. The flow's so sick, yeah.
Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Andrew Katoa. Welcome to the Settler, a rugby show where our panel will be throwing in their 2 cents to settle a few scores about the world of rugby. So what we're hoping to get from the show is just for that everyday fan, for those punters out there, if you've ever been in a pub having an argument or a debate about some rugby skills or things going on or off the field, the Settler's all about just settling a few scores, pulling up a stool, cracking a cold one and having a yarn about the cool stuff that goes on within the world of rugby. So just introducing the panel, we have Sam Wykes, Pek Cowan and Robbie Abel. Very excited to have our panel here with almost 300 Super Rugby caps, some international games. So plenty of experience here, but also not only players, but big fans of the game as well. Firstly, over to you, Wykesy. Thanks for joining us on the show, mate. How's it going and your thoughts on the show?
Nah, thanks, mate. Pretty pumped for something new. I talk with these boys a fair bit about footy, solving a few problems and just chewing the fat. So I think for me, being retired now, joining the 9 to 5, I still want to stay connected with footy, and I still want to stay connected with some really good mates that I've come across with along the way. And I felt like this was a good way to stay connected with them and still talk about something that we're passionate about. We've got a lot of knowledge that we've learnt along the way, just through our mistakes and through learning from some key people. So it's just a good way. We'll bloody dissect a few bits of the game, give our opinion, whether it's right or wrong, doesn't matter, but we'll fucking have a crack with it. So yeah, it's good to be here with these boys.
Yeah, nice. And someone who you've had a lot of experience throughout your career with, Pek Cowan, over there in NZ, mate. Thanks for joining us. And guess what are you hoping to get out of the show?
Yeah, I think very similar to Sam. I'm not quite retired yet. I'm still playing with the Wellington Lions in ITM Cup, but as people might be aware of, you know, we're kind of in lockdown at the moment, so it's actually a good way to stay connected with footy in general. Similar to Sam, I think not only passing on experience and experience throughout the game and throughout the years of playing footy, but I think staying connected with our mates is one of the big things, big reasons why we play rugby and we start playing rugby. So keeping those connections, and like you've said already, like chewing the fat, settling a few scores, a few ideas that we might have, and yeah, just enjoying each other's company.
Very good. And also across the ditch, Robbie, Abel, mate, I know you're at Auckland at the moment, and thanks for joining us on the show. How's things, and what are you hoping to get from the show?
Mate, everything's all good. Just locking in with the family in Auckland and lockdown, and going nuts there. So I'm just keen to lock myself in the room and spin some yarns with the boys. I've learned a lot over these two blokes over the years. So yeah, just keen to add my 2 cents and just see where it goes. Hopefully create some conversations.
Awesome. So as we said, we are going to dive into different aspects of the game, and today I'll let Wykes introduce what that is. So what are we looking at today, Wykes?
Mate, a real sexy part of the game we'll bloody dissect here is MAULs, MAUL D in particular. I think it's a part of the game where when you look at it from a punter's point of view, you probably think, what's going on here? And surely is it off?
Yeah, nice. Well, let's get a different picture. So this one's against the Reds. I know you sent this clip, Wykes. What are we seeing here?
I was thinking this is a good top angle. I'm just talking about just the way you sort of, I think the next one sort of shows it, just the pitch that we see, stop there. Like what we were talking about before, where teams might try and go for the net first rather than getting them going backwards. And you just see like...
So is this an example of the Reds netting here?
Yeah, netting, because like those players there on the edge, they've got their heads on the outside, ready for anything that's shifting around or any pure play, whatever like that, and trying to stop it that way. But as you can see, there's no punch through the middle there, and you just see them pincering straight through. But I also want you to see the role of Darcy here, Darcy Swain. Look at it; it's almost like a reverse attacking sack type of thing. So if we go back to it again. So he's in that space, okay? So they're sort of like holding that, and he can just sort of feel that there's two, and you see him change his grip and pull the 1 and the 5 out. He ends up on the floor, but look at those two, they're out of the maul, and the 6 is out. And now you've got one Brumbies player on the floor, and then the rest will attach, heading towards where the weight is now, where they're more top heavy or sort of, on that edge there. And they just keep going that way. And then you see Tupou, because now Darcy's taken that, you'll see Tupou end up giving away the penalty for coming around on the side. They score anyway. But by Darcy changing the grip and ripping them out, it's just created a great scene for the Brumbies to attack through, and painted the picture for the ref to say that where Tupou's come from, even though he's there in the middle, he's there in the middle, pops his head up. Yep. Now, because he's taken out, like Darcy Swain's gone, everyone else is gone, he just shifts around there, and then he's just painted the picture to the ref that he's come around from the side.
Yeah, and I think a really big point there, Sam, Wykes, is that the work that Darcy Swain actually does, Taniela Tupou is actually probably in the best position he could be in this MAUL setup.
Yeah.
And had those other two guys not gone through, he would have actually had all right to try and get to the hooker. But like you said, because that's been done so well, strip 3 guys from that one side, all of a sudden Nella goes from in the middle to clearly on the outside now. Before it would have been unsure and it could have been a 50-50. And now in this case, he's kind of, all his weight, all his pressure is gone because he ends up finding himself to the outside of that MAUL. And like you said, he gives away the penalty, but they score anyways.
And if he's in that position too, Nella, if he's being caught offside, just go through with the tackle. You know what I mean? Don't let bloody Folau score another bloody try from fucking 5 meters out too, bastard. If you're giving away the penalty, just give it away, bro. You may as well go through with it. Don't be half pregnant with it.
But that's probably that action that you see Darcy Swain do. You see him do it quite a bit and pretty effective at it. And you see a lot of the other boys do. That's something that I think has probably been an evolution of their scrum over their MAUL over the last few years. It wasn't something that was being kind of trained when I was there a few years ago, but I'd say it's probably something they're definitely intentionally doing. I wouldn't say that there's many things that.
100% it is. Corey Fisher there.
With those guys there, with Laurie and Dan McKellar and even Roy Murphy and those blokes, there's not stuff that they're doing that's just the boys going out on their own. Like they're intentionally knowing what they're doing there, pulling those blokes out, create that momentum shift, and she's away.
Yeah, and in this case, like Darcy doesn't quite manage to get back into the maul, but I have seen in the past, like, you know, and there's always that, you know, one shot, one kill mentality when it comes to mauling. But, you know, with the Brumbies, you might drive them out of the maul or whatever, they might pull you up, but they'll get back into the maul before you do, because you've got the longer route to have to actually get up and around to the back of your maul, as where they will just get up and pretty much run straight back into their maul. I think, is there an example on this?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, it gets right. So we'll get to that one 100% right. If we go to the next clip now, okay, I think what you'll find is as well, like throughout the week, you're so wired up to get this bit right. So you want to flirt with, you know, trying to cheat a little bit and get the jump on that hit, and you're sort of pumped up to be able to do that because you know what's coming. You want to win that battle up front. But again, what happens is that you go a bit earlier a lot because you've decided to stay down, and this happens a lot too. So they've gone way too early, but that's the intent that you want to go in with, but they just got the time wrong. See how this time they're all down, what Pek's talked about, they've got that little bit of a gap there, hands on the hip and ready to hit hard, like they're sort of just, but they've just gone early. You know, they just had to buy themselves just that little bit more time to get it going backwards. And it was going backwards there, but again, they've found a bloody way to score either way. So it's just like, that's probably where, do you reckon that's where they've evolved as well, Robbie? It's just like, if they don't get that initial sort of try from the first bloody threat there of the maul, that they know how to play off it now, out wide to shorten their numbers?
Yeah, I don't think it's like a forwards go to work type thing. Backs just sit there and chill type. Sometimes they can play, if you've played in some teams, that's the mentality, is like forwards get the try there. It seems like there's definitely a plan there to shorten that lineup, and it makes I think that's Pataya have to make that decision, try to cut that pass off, and get them to come back in, and they just throw the ball straight over the top. But having halfbacks and stuff and drivers that can kind of pick those opportunities, it's definitely something that they've got a lot of experience in.
And it just goes back off their pressure too, of they're like, so now I think you've said it to me before, Robbie, with Kiwis, they're talking about they thrive on getting that sort of that penalty because it's like a free shot to do something as well, because you can always come back to the more penalty. Is that right? Like,
yeah.
Like is that a mentality?
For sure. Especially you look at some teams, and Crusaders would be a perfect example of that. Like you see that free shot, and then you just see some of the chances that they take on there. Like Richie Mwanga just puts these wild kicks or whatever it is, and you know, you see these wingers come away with some amazing tries, but the pressure is all off completely. So you know, there's nothing stopping them from trying whatever you want to do at that time.
And that's a hard thing for the mentality. Like, well, let's just say you're trying to defend that, and let's just say, for example, the Brumbies don't score on that phase. Guess what? They're going to grab that ball, kick it back out. You're going to get that timing right.
Again.
If you don't get it right, they're most likely going to set something up and build more pressure. If they don't necessarily score off that, these guys get another shot with their backs off that release. They know that all the forwards are going to be in that maul, so they know it's a one-on-one. So it's a pretty hard thing, but I guess it's quite normal to have to be able to, okay, we didn't quite get that right. We have to go again now because we didn't get it right. You know, like you said, Robbie, it's that fine line. Or Wykes said it's that fine line between being a little bit too early, being a little bit too late. Be a little bit too late, they'll set up that maul, potentially score. Go too early, give away a free punch, a free opportunity for them to strike if they don't get it coming back again. Anyways. Yeah.
Mate, the flip side of that is that if you can do a really good job on that maul, in those areas, scrum maul, if you can put a lot of pressure on there and don't give them those pressure releases all the time, and puts a lot of pressure then back on them to be able to just pull those things off and score those points without having that free shot.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
when I went to the Rebels, we beat the Brums twice that year, and that was a plan the whole time. Every game, just put pressure on set piece, take set piece away, and everyone that plays, the teams that are known for that area of the game, they'll go into it with that plan. Take away set piece, take away set piece. Once you take it away, I think the Brums have really developed their game and be able to win games through the other areas of the game. But it goes a long way to be able to get the job done.
Yeah, nice. And we will look at the Tars a bit later on about what they did to nullify the set piece. But I think what you spoke about here, Pek, is an example of a bit of work rate where even though they've ended up out of the maul, they've worked really hard to get back into it. So we'll just let this play through.
That's all very similar pictures that we've already seen. You know, it's always very consistent. They obviously train it a lot. And yeah, in this case here, you see Slips. They do a good job. Slips, okay, decides, okay, he's got the wood over me. I'm going to pull him out. But he rejoins that more. He gets himself back in there before they do. They might have already cracked that pressure anyways. But again, that technique of, okay, I'm starting to lose it. I'm going to make sure I take someone out with me before I do get taken out. And what he actually does here, you can actually see he's taken potentially two guys away from that maul. So they've disconnected. I think Samu's gone in and plugged that gap that was already covered by
Slips.
Sorry,
yeah,
it was covered by Slips. So there's no damage done there to their maul, and I think that's one of those big things, Sam, like we've spoken about. Robbie would have done is just repetition through practicing more, like, you know, rolling up your sleeves week in, week out, especially during preseason, and just going through exactly what it is you want, going through all the different scenarios. And guys, although it might look like, you know, their heads are down, they're actually very, you know, you guys would know, you're all very aware of what's actually going on around you, despite not necessarily having the chance to stand up, have a quick look and go. Like, a lot of this comes down to feel. Summer does a good job there of just plugging that hole that Slips creates. Slips does a great job to get himself back in there before, you know, Harry Johnson-Holmes gets that chance to get back in there.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but would you say that the Tars actually go okay in terms of when the man hits the ground and getting their contact right here? Do you think they do a good job? And it probably isn't until Slips does that work where he takes the players out and there's that disconnect, then they start to get momentum. But just have a look. How would you rate their work in that first 3 seconds here?
Yeah, I reckon the Tars here definitely slowing it up right at the start. Like, that first 2 seconds is definitely a battle. That creates a massive pressure release when Slips is able to take that bloke. Able to take, who did he take? Swinno and H and Harry Johnson-Holmes. As soon as he's able to take that out, look, you look at it going a bit stale, right there. And what you don't want is the ref to say use it in that scenario. So he just pulls him out, and then the boys get going again. And then they create a doubt on these guys on the edges. Watch Hordo there, trying to figure out, when should I hit it? What should I do there? It's I reckon you're right. They do pretty well first 3 seconds, and then it's those other tricks that come into play that get the ball going.
I think just in that one, like, maybe a little bit of experience as well. But like Swinno, if he had kind of felt like that pressure was actually coming through, and he felt that, we're actually about to bust Slips here, he could have actually kind of detached, because he's actually attached to Harry Johnson-Holmes, which is fine. But in this case, once Harry Johnson-Holmes gets pulled, it disconnects him. So if he could actually, if you kind of watching him, and as Slipper goes to pull, he could actually slip his head, and then he would actually be right on Samu straight away, instead of allowing that to be there. And I know this is like, you know, in the heat of the moment, but when you actually look at it, there's an opportunity there for him to be like, yep, I'm going to cut you loose, you're going to go, and I'm going to try and take that space.
Yeah, you're right, bro. I reckon that sort of going back to exactly what you said about with the Brumbies having that like instinct of knowing where to put their head through feel. I guess being involved with the Tars and Robbie, like I think the hardest thing for us when we were trying to defend more Ds, bro, we actually didn't have many numbers to train it, like train, and because we like mauling wasn't a strength of ours as well. Like we're only mauling against each other, like not against like a beast of say like the Brumbies. To be able to get like for Swinner to be able to feel where the pressure's coming from or to where he should put his head. Yeah, like myself, I was dead wood floating around that training, so I couldn't add a number in to try and help or whatever. So like that preparation during the week to be able to get that feeling and then to flip it to the Brums, like we all know we've had a few more sessions at training. Like it's hard training, bro. Like to be able to get good at that and get that feel, you're doing that a lot.
Yeah.
You're getting your toes trodden on a lot. You're getting your head in dark places. There's a lot of fights at training as well. I guarantee there'll be a lot of stinks because that's what it takes to be a really good mauling team, to be able to get a lot of it by feel. Sometimes you might not be able to explain it, but you just get a lot by feel. So it's an impressive unit to be able to sort of sit here and watch it like that.
Mate, well, my first maul session when I came back to the Brums was, I think Dan Palmer just came through. I came through too high, and he just slipped through this spot and just hooked me straight in the gut. Just ripped his arm through, hooked me straight in the gut. I just dropped straight to the ground, winded, and then I knew right then, body height down.
Hey,
for one, I'm not going to do a good job if I go in too high. Second, I'm going to get hooked.
We're missing some of those old school fellas.
Mate, 100%. But it's you're right. That's the mentality that the teams that love the dark places, they get the results because they do it through the week. So.
What about the old backs, forwards doing the work, and then the backs come and steal the try?
Oh, mate, Tony Brown, his rule at when I was with Sunwolves, he said you guys can join the bloody maul, but no back was allowed to score, because if they scored, they had to join the mauling sessions that we used to do through the week. And so that was the thing. He goes, "Yep, add weight, but don't touch the fucking ball, because unless you do that work during the week, then you can't then can't score it." So. In this case, I would have loved more backs to score than Folau, bloody dirty bastard. I'm just spewing that he's one of the highest try scorers. Anyway, that's a story for another time. But we move on to this fourth one. Mate, I really like this one because this sort of paints a really big picture on putting it all together when because actually the fourths get a really good hit, probably what you talked about before, Pekka, with they probably have more of a plan to hit it towards the sideline maybe if we show it. So go back to the start, AK, of this maul. Obviously they've got some guys getting in there early. They're getting in that seam. You see Thrushy get in there in that seam. You've got Throb working hard there, and they're sort of probably more on that angle to try and hit him that way. But what you do here, you see Darcy Swain. They see they're going to the sideline, probably going nowhere. They're turning a bit more, and he just changes his grip. Let it play, changes the grip.
As well, like they're five, you can tell he can feel that, and that's a bit of experience there, and maybe a bit of comms, maybe from the week before, or however. But you can see that just him shifting where he was gives him that opportunity to keep into that more. Like the Force still lose two guys there, but they could have lost three. From him not, so he can feel we're going around, bang, he gets around the other side.
Gets around 100%, yeah.
But again, Darcy Swain's kind of got his hand on two guys. He knows, like he's like, nah, I'm not going anywhere. But he takes two down with him again.
And what that does too, bro, we take it back, AK, as well. So what that does as well, what I talked about earlier, when you get a good hit on, you're trying to get the maul going backwards with the first four people in there in that maul, because then that means that, say where Brainard's standard is here on the edge, he's holding that defensive, like he doesn't have to commit, because now he can worry about if anyone peels. But sorry, go back again even further before that. I like the role that they've done here with it's a they've called they call this a 69 type of movement where the 9, so 6'9" being the 6 man plus the 9 at the front, 7 at halfback. You just watch Whitey there. He pulls to the blind side, which that forces Marcel Brashy to hold, and it forces Ian Pryor at the back to sort of hold and not join the back line to create an extra number in D. So it holds him there. Okay, then Brainerd, they've got it going backwards. He doesn't have to commit. But what Darcy Swain does here, by changing his grip and sacking that like Thrushy and Throb there, getting him out of play, he feels like he has to come plug that hole. Okay, so now he's plugged that hole. That means that they had an extra forward in the back line. Kane Kortecker was in the back line, sort of being an extra number there for defense. He now has to fill that hole where Brainerd is. So now it's just short in the back line. Forster still a really good job here at stopping it. They're still not going anywhere. They're plugging it, but as you can see, they've had to commit every forward around that ball, around that maul. Plus, they've had Ian Pryor and Marcel Brashy not being able to release anywhere, and they score out wide because they've shortened the back line.
And I guess that's the stuff that you can't. Well, I think you either plan for, and either the back line for the Force rush up and try and shut that longer pass down, or flip side, the Brumbies, that's what they're looking for. Like they know traditionally the Force have always been quite good at stopping mauls, because it's kind of what they've always been used to doing, having to defend a lot. And in this case, they do a pretty good job to stop the maul. But like you said, Sam, they've shortened the line. So I guess maybe Robbie, you might be able to comment on this. Like, do you guys plan for that as well? Like, so if our maul doesn't go well, or if they do commit their 7 and 8 who are meant to be sitting out in that back line, do we then go and strike and they run a move, or because in this case they don't get an advantage for a penalty. They've got that one shot, but they still throw that punch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I reckon the Force there, that's an awesome job, because if that's the option, you're going to force them to make that pass continuously. Like if you can stop that source there and make them have to play away, they're not going to get those passes right every time. You're going to be able to stop those all the time, even if it shortens your lineup. You probably got a better chance of recovering there. But I'd say that's definitely something that they would have had to play on. Had to plan for, is if the ball slows down here, where do we go from there? What options are we looking at? And the backs just do a good job of getting them across. But yeah, I reckon from the Force, I reckon there's other than having an extra man here, and they could probably solve that with the way that these guys enter, is just realizing that Brainerd's gone, someone has to stay.
Yeah.
Well, they lose Katoa
exactly.
as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because right before that, it's already slowed up here. Ref's probably yelling, use it. And they're still sending blokes in to that maul, Thrushy and Throbber that come around. So if they could just join that line and just let it sit there for a little bit, and then be able to create that
100%
extra number. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So, if Thrushy doesn't commit to that, because the ball, like you see Whitey already pulling it out.
Yeah, he's already pulling it out.
So if Thrushy has eyes up on it, he can push Ian Pryor out that little bit further to create like just another number in the line. But again, it just comes back to like throughout the week just always focusing as forwards. Fuck, we've got to get our heads in there. Yes, we've stopped it. You go into that self mode rather than thinking, and you make it. It's a tough decision to make when you're out there. Like he probably would have seen that.
Yeah.
Fuck, I shouldn't have put my head in. But like in the moment there, fuck, it's hard to do.
Mate.
Man, yeah.
When you're talking about like it's all hindsight of what we're talking about now.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a tough thing to critique people on. But in that scenario, just say they'll be able to create that one number, and then you can stop that ball on the edge or wherever it is.
Just you're in with a chance still.
You're in with a chance there, and their forwards are cooked. Like you're cooked being in there. You're cooked too, but you've stopped the try, and now they've got to play from that. So as soon as you take that ball out of that maul, you have to score every time. You have to, or else you're pretty gassed. Oh.
Yeah.
I'm gassed.
I'm gassed too, bro. Don't worry about that. Nah, sweet. Go to the next one, Robbie. You kick us off with this next one, bro.
Yeah, this is probably back to what we're talking about in terms of like painting pictures consistently every week. So let it play out. Big cocky straight through with a try. But that's been set up through, I guess, weeks in advance in terms of sitting at 9 at the front, running a peel and hitting the 9. And then at the time, if you remember those years, Tavita just running these short lines,
At that
running
seam.
down lines at the seam, just collecting shoulders.
Shitting themselves.
Yeah. And all that stuff is prepped up through the week. And the Highlanders, they have a plan there. They know that a maul is most likely coming. They've gone to sack it.
They do a good job.
They do a good job sacking that, and it just happens that that's not the play. Cocky's able to just dummy that, come back down that short side. Leonard Brown, he knows that Brums at that time has just been running these short lines with Tavita, and he's gone to kind of fill that space around the outside, and then had to come back. So it's going into prepping things for weeks in advance and kind of playing on what people are kind of known you for. It's a good play.
Oh, how fucking good is it when you've prepped for a special move throughout the week and it comes off?
Oh,
like, mate, because so how many times that, like, I guess, again, for teams wanting to plan special moves, and we'll go this into another segment about like special line-out moves, is that, like, if you don't paint those pictures through like the same picture every week, it's so hard to do those special moves off, you know, like. And so you've planned, like, Brumbies have planned them more, or not planned them more, but like for years. And then in this competition, like weeks in advance, to be able to go, okay, we've got a variation off and out. So that's what happens when you're dominant. You can actually do little, you know, variations off painting the same picture. And just that feeling when it comes off, it's like, yes, fuck, we did it, bro. Instead of looking like, oh my God, what were they doing there? Did they do their analysis throughout the week? And like he didn't even move when you've come down the channel. Like the bloke hasn't even folded and he stayed. But it's just, that's what happens when you paint the same picture every week.
Well, that's exactly as we've just kind of covered in the last two clips. Like the force came flying in, they were prepared to leave themselves short, potentially knowing that they're probably going to come through the middle. They strike out wide, they score untouched. Here, the Highlanders, they commit, they actually do a really good job. Whether it was because they were having this play, you never know, but they commit most of their forwards, you know, and then Cocky comes around the corner, you know, Robbie's. Yeah,
he's held him nicely. Give it, Cocky.
I'm just hoping someone jams him so he has to pass.
Cocky does a great job, and like I guess the point is that and Robbie's already said it though, is that they've created this over weeks and weeks of training and playing and showing the same pictures to, you know, a special move coming off, and, you know, relieving that pressure of always having to do or be, you know, expelling a lot of energy with them all. So it is such a good feeling, I can imagine.
When you think about it though, the threat of if you remember the threat of prime bloody Tavita Kurandrani running a short line off a line out, it makes you prep for that.
You just want to get off.
Because at the time, like, that used to be like first phase Brums every time, like every single time.
Yeah, every time.
And it still get kind of he'll get pretty good gain line off it. At the time, you have to just prep for that. It's not like you're gonna think, they're gonna do something else. Because at the time, mate, it was like literally
there was nothing else.
Every first phase, it was every first phase. Tavita,
he's got to stop it.
Yeah,
sweet.
We're going to move on to how the Tars, one of the tactics you use to try and nullify this. But before we do, very quickly, so you mentioned the Highlanders, they sack on this occasion. You've mentioned they've done a good job to pull him down and sack him. We've just watched a few of the other, I guess, Aussie teams' examples where they're choosing to engage. What's the mindset around the Highlanders choosing to sack here instead of doing what we've been seeing in the last few?
I reckon the plan would have been, like, they would have had an area of the field. So they would have said, like, if we see back rower at halfback from the 22 out or whatever it was, we're going to sack. And they would have just kind of gone with that mindset. just banking on chances are they're going to try more. And then you'd see closer, they would have transitioned, and we had a chance to win that game with a maul on the 83rd minute, and Highlanders stopped us and ended up winning the game. So that close to the line,
with the sack, so with that sack there as well, what you're talking about with Kirandrani, say if they did play the play, it leaves Coltman and that on their feet, because two people have now stopped that more, which leaves numbers on the feet. So you've got like people covering across for bloody Kirandrani. So if the first person misses the tackle, there's plenty of coverage in that seam. So that's why they've gone with the sack as well. We just don't want to use too many bodies in there, so we can defend that next threat. But I've never been a fan of a sack. For me personally, I just couldn't get it right, bro. Like, I just found that there's some people that could do it really well, because if you don't get it right, oh man, you've lost the battle. Like, you just pull in from the ground and you just know, you go, oh shit, they're still you go like tugging on it, come down, bro. You see the hooker in here to make a tackle, and illegal or legal, it's up to the ref to make the decision on that. But you just see him take his legs out, and we see in the top one we adopted against the Brumbies here. One person just takes out that whole maul. It's a bit of a suicide mission, but it got the job done. And like, you just see him go in there, and like it just. And then what you see is that like everyone's on their feet in the thing, but the mentality around it is like, I sort of brought it up with the coaching staff specifically to do it against the Brums, just because I was like, man, we can keep going down the same route and trying to hit harder. The old commentator, hit harder, get in earlier, do all that type of thing, and sort of like egotistic sort of view of like, no, we just get in there, or we could try something a little bit left field. That the Brumbies have not trained against ever, paint a different picture and forces it and put the pressure back on them to try and work it out on the run. Because at the moment, every team's been doing the same thing and getting the same result. Bloody more tries. So like, if we move to the next clip there after the Japanese one, sort of why we do it, I guess. So if you stop, well, as it goes around and you see the sort of bird's eye view of it, if we stop there, you can see what it does. So like, you don't have to match numbers in defense as well for a rule. But you can see we've got coverage across the whole field. So if we don't get it right there, and then they do make a little line break in behind because they turn and run and we miss the tackle, we've still got bodies in behind there to make that tackle, and they've only made 10 meters or 5 meters or whatever. Okay, it leaves everyone on their feet. And as well, with what we were talking about before, we didn't want to give any penalties around that area. Because we were sick of like giving penalty there and then Banksy kicking it into the 5. You know what I mean? So we wanted the Brumbies to play. The mindset was like, we need them to play footy, and we needed to just be able to defend it. And like, it took us a few goes to get it right, but as you can see, the scoreline here is 24-10. 50, and we've seen those score lines in the last 20 minutes of it's been that score, and then the last sort of 30, 20 minutes, the score ended up being 50 or 60, But what happened was, as you can see, so if we go back, AK. So as you said, we've had to force them to play. They don't know what to do. It's a bit of a Mexican standoff. We get in there, stop it. He gets us for coming around the side, but he's peeled off. I don't know, but whatever. But what it does do, if we did do it right, here we go. Now we get line speed with more numbers on our feet. We get up, and we can shut it down. Look where we would have made that tackle, from where the line out was, by having more numbers on our feet to do it. He misses, it doesn't matter, but we still make that tackle. Obviously, they go back for the penalty, but we didn't get it right. But this is where we do get it right. Same thing. Brings it down. Don't know what to do. We're putting pressure on them to make a decision. He's just looking backwards. Could have gone in a little bit earlier, Hordo. But look, Bloody Coop says he's done a good tackle. And so now they've gone for the boxing. You know what I mean? No penalty. They've gone for the kick. And then we get to play out of it this time around. So no penalty given away. We get the ball. And now we make a line break. That's an area that we had to fix up. But the plan's sort of in place there. Now, so if we stop here, we look at it. So this time we don't defend the 2-man more, but it's because they've put a halfback there now, not a forward. So they've had to change tactics. So the 63rd minute, we've done it 3 times. They've gone, like on the 40-metre line sort of thing. They've had to change tactic. This time, we've gone up with air pressure. Let it play through. Bobbled ball, get over. Now we get a turnover ball and a penalty. So off the back of maybe change attack. And now we've put pressure back on the Brumbies. And what we're trying to do, we've played chess here and we've put it back on them, but we don't have the clip. But when you see Dan McKellar in the box, he's going off. Like, you know, what's going on here? So we get a line out. Although we like, so this comes off the back of that pressure. Line break. We don't get it right. Like they get the turnover, but numbers on our feet moving forward, getting off the line. Obviously, like, yeah, we've still got numbers on the feet. We've practiced this at training a lot with Jezza here, getting that, like, gets the charge down. And then we go under, the sticks. And now it's 24-17. So just a little bit of a change in tactic there has put us sort of put the pressure back on the Brumbies. And like, we didn't win the game, but like we played them. Hey, Robbie, what was the score when we played them in Canberra? It was like 60 or something. You know, we didn't have any. Our coach just got sacked that week as well, Rob Penny. So there was a lot of pressure on us to sort of like just bloody, you know, dissolve there, not show up. But a little bit of change of tactic, a little bit of buy-in, and then we were able to come within a kick to draw the game to take it into extra time. But it wasn't to be. But like, you know, off the back of that sort of effort from the boys, we'll be able to change the picture. But I don't know. I'll put it to you boys. Is it? I guess when you're as forwards in terms of like when you're supposed to put off this front where we're strong, tough, is it a soft way out? Is it a smart way out? I'll leave it up to you boys.
I think I'll go first. I think to the purists, like obviously you look at it and be like, doesn't look really good, you know, like, but from a tactical and by the rules, I think it's masterstroke really, because it takes away one of, if not their biggest strength. So then all of a sudden you have to play a bit more footy, as Robbie's already kind of mentioned, you know, like whether you stop them more, you know, they get that free shot or whatever. But all you're trying to do is eliminate the opportunity they have to create penalties, to then put them into your 22, to then create more pressure into potential penalties, into tries. So in this case, and especially with how your season had been going with injury and things like that, I think, you know, this was a huge turnaround and a pretty positive result. Like, yeah, obviously you don't get the win, but tactically it's quite smart, and it's obviously effective. You know, you bring yourself back into this game, and then you're a bee's dick away from actually, you know, drawing and then actually having to play some more footy, which I think would have really tested the Brumbies, because they would have seen what they did the first time they played you and just thought, we're going to do the same thing, just a little bit better. So they were prepared exactly the same, and to be given a picture that they would not have trained, because, you know, to touch on the second point that I'll probably say is, you kind of, as a forward especially, you have to put the pride down and actually play footy, play tactical, smart footy, because essentially that is what the Brumbies do. They do it in a really tough and uniform way, where they utilise their forwards. You know, their backs can come in and maul with them. But in this case, it's like, hey boys, check that to the side. Check that pride to the side. We're all about trying to win this game. You know, we haven't had a lot go our way so far this year. Let's try and do everything we can to win. And I think that's innovative in a way, and really probably was nearly the masterstroke you needed just to really just change the picture on them. I don't know, Robbie, what do you reckon?
Oh, I love it. I think it's awesome to just change the picture and kind of put the pressure on someone else in those scenarios. Everyone knows when you play the Brums, they go to the maul, pressure's on. Is the other team going to defend it well? But then you put the pressure on them to see if they can adapt during their game, make the changes that they need to, play a different way, and also put the pressure on the refs to make the right calls at that time. A lot of things going into play, but I guess if that's something that the boys prepared for, you know, Wykes was pretty strong in it, come to the table with it. The boys were keen on it, and I give fair play to them. Like, there's some pretty young boys in that team, and they were pretty keen to try something new and do it at a Super Rugby level. That's awesome. I think it's a great mindset for those young boys to have, just to be able to try something new and trying to put pressure on a team another way, other than the way that we had been doing through the whole year. It doesn't take away that you gotta get better and more. We've got to do whatever we have to do to be able to match teams up front. But it's just good. It's good to see something new in the game and changing pitches.
On that as well, bro. With the sorry, bro. With the during the week, because when Rob got sacked, obviously it wasn't planned for the week. But I had bicep surgery, and then on captain's run, that's when Gilly rang me and goes, "Mate, I want to try that tactic. Talk to me about it." And I was like, "Yeah, fuck, bring it in, bro."
Oh, yeah,
so only implemented it on captain's run. So as you said, bro, you take your hat off to the boys to just like, fuck yeah, we'll have a crack. What have we got to lose? So that was just implemented the night before the game, because I brought it to him a while ago. As I said, it's not my idea, but it was just there. And then the funny thing was when I guess the reason why I was so strong with it as well, because I got dropped from that game against Panasonic. So I was the opposition running it through the week. And man, I tell you, after trying to come up with different ways to try and beat that system, all I was doing was looking over my shoulder at that bloody hooker taking me legs out. So I was so nervous. I just like, you just like got the like jumping up and down, because you just don't want to get hit there, bro. Like, is it fucking hurt? But yeah, take my hat off to the boys, bro. Like, just new boys, just like obviously tough season, and to pull something off like that. It took a lot of balls and courage, because you look at it and you go, what the hell is this? And that's what happens when if you're going to do something first, it's either going to be sink or swim with it, heroes or villains. So this time it sort of paid off.
Is it something? Why wouldn't you do it more often if you got success from it?
It comes back to what Pek said, I reckon. Pecker, just
etiquette.
When you're purist of the game.
Yeah, like really, you could actually defend every single maul like that. You know, like why not? And then you've always got more guys in the defensive line. But then naturally, what it would do is it would force other teams to be like, okay, when we see this 2-man, this is what play we're going to play. You know, and then you might get exposed elsewhere. But
yeah,
you know, I'm kind of on the fence. Like, it's like, well, you don't have to do as much work as a forward, so then you've actually got more energy.
You don't have to defend the ball.
Like, you know, getting chopped up and getting split. The only person who's going to be flying in there is Big Robbie with his big dome, but that's all right.
How's Hordo, man? No arms straight.
Right, and I'm telling you, every side will have that kamikaze bloke. If it's not the hooker, it's probably the 7.
Bro.
So just let them do it. They'll be like, you go, "Oh, bro, can you do this roll for me?" He goes, "Yeah, fucking oath, I'll do that one." Yeah, like, sweet, bro, you have it, bro.
Fly in, bro. Fly in.
And that's a very similar thing to like how we kind of mentioned right at the start, and Robbie said it, where it doesn't really take a lot of talent. You just got to know what you're doing. So in terms of the way that the Brumbies set up their maul, they just know exactly what they're doing. They're bringing some they're bringing some energy, you know, and they're creating a maul to score. And in this case, it's like, you know, it doesn't take much talent, but we're going to know what we're doing from, say, this far out, you know. So we're not going to give them an opportunity. We're not going to give them an opportunity to score tries in this area from this particular set piece.
But that's the beauty of it. It's that process of chasing the edge. Like the Brumbies developed this maul out of a need to chase the edge over competition. You know, depending on who they had or whatever it was, just trying to chase it. What area of the game can we manipulate to be able to get an edge over our competition? So it's exactly the same principle, just spinning it in a different way, or trying to work it in another angle. You know, and that's the beauty of footy. You know, you just try to find little things that you can bloody be really good at, get an edge over your competition. Try to see if that can help you win games.
Yeah, awesome. Moving on, I know a lot of the viewers are going to enjoy this bit of an insight into the training. And as you mentioned, Robbie, just detail. The biggest thing that's been for me as a learner is just how much detail actually goes into this. But Wykes, you've shared this strategy here. Can you just talk us through what you're trying to achieve on this clip?
I guess after getting a little bit of confidence sharing the 2-man strategy, I thought I'd try and do something different again. Because like, as Pek said, you just can't keep doing it every single time, because we're going into Trans-Tasman and we're going to come up against the Crusaders. So I just thought, they've probably seen it a couple of times. They probably would have come up with something to probably score from it. They've got some bloody magicians over there that sort of know how to prepare and score tries from anything. But so I guess talking with like Robbie a fair bit, when he was living next door to me, we chewed the fat about how we can sort of maybe stop them more from the Crusaders. Tried to come up with this concept with like a hook type of defense. We talked about earlier in the piece about getting down low, hand on hip, trying to punch through, get lower than them. But then again, like I've seen, like when you saw the Brumbies play against the Crusaders or whatever, everyone, they're doing the same thing, but yet, the Crusaders still scored. And that's against a really strong defensive mauling team. I thought I'd try and keep the lifters high here with this hook sort of D. So the concept was, as I said, was to keep the lifters high by us defending. So if we play it from the start, so we're having putting our two props in the middle. Again, our shortest sort of probably players, but also like very strong players. So we've got Brainy and Tetra Faulkner in the middle there, wanting them to force them to throw to the middle. So as we press play, we'll watch Tetra here get in. He does a really good job. So I got him to step into that space, not put your hands on him, not giving away a penalty to go in early, but getting in there. So as the lifter brings the jumper down, he's coming to land on top of his shoulder. Okay, so that means if he does that, that means he can't get down low, and it's sort of, and then Breeny doing the other thing, and we're trying to separate them to leave the jumper by himself. But what we needed was, and this is probably where we'll go into that after, and what we wanted was the next guy to come through and power through and get it going backwards. At training, we got it like again, we sort of got it right at training. We kept, as you see, we kept them high. You see him landing on the shoulders there of Breeny and Tetra. You see good positions, press play, and you see like he couldn't get down, and we were able to drive it backwards. Got through there, but and it worked at training. But when we did it against the Crusaders, we didn't get our timing right. And one of the times we did get our timing right, we didn't have the guys the detail right, where the guys would come through the middle and get it. Like it was almost like Whitelock had no lifters, but he was still standing up and oh shit, may as well just go. And they went through and scored anyway. So like the detail, that was my fault. I didn't get the detail right across for the boys in the prep right during the week to be able to do it. And so like even later, I wanted to send this off to Laurie Fisher just to get his sort of opinion on it. Just another set of eyes. Just, Robbie always said like he's probably forgotten more about footy than most people have learned over the years. And mate, he was awesome. I sent him that footage and he came back with a detailed response. I think the next clip sort of shows it in the message, his reply. Like that, like he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to do anything. I take my hat off to him. He said it's he likes the concept of it. He's sort of seen it done before, but he goes into a lot of detail there, and he goes about getting the boys to come through the middle as we spoke. Like he just came back with that. I really appreciated that from him, because it's just sort of like, I guess when you've been in the game for a long time, you just want to challenge yourself, challenge your thinking, and not always think it's always the same way. But again, we've got two other experts on here that can sort of pros and cons towards it as well.
I think I'll just jump in there real quick. I think had you maybe had something like this planned, at the start of preseason, like obviously this idea had come about because you didn't want to keep doing the same thing,
Yeah.
You changed it up a little bit with, the two-man D, and this essentially is not necessarily reinventing the wheel, because everyone is still got a clear role to try and upset the lifters to expose that jumper. And I think, we've kind of mentioned it with the Brumbies, they would have been doing mauling and MAUL defense. Well, they've been doing it non-stop for the last however long. But, had you had a preseason and everyone knowing their role, like to the point that your reserves could come on and they could do it. The reserves, and the guys who aren't playing can try and defend it like that. So when you set up your MAUL, you're getting that same feeling.
Yeah, so true.
So that you could be like, shit, this actually works. Instead of just be like, hey guys, can you do this? And we're going to try and do this for this particular game. Or, you took it in for your last kind of three. Was it your last 3 games?
No, we tried it against the Crusaders.
Okay.
I think when we didn't get that, when we didn't get that sort of pay out of it, again, like it just too hard basket, fuck it, not enough time, and like we had other fires that we needed to put out. And Robbie, you were playing that time. You probably give better insight in terms of the gut feel and what it was,
The training that you introduced, I remember the boys being pretty keen, and it's like there's a fair bit of looking around and seeing like, but there's a lot of excitement because when we tried to run and try to maul against it, it was actually pretty tough. Like when the boys were in those right positions, it's almost like that rugby league, like under the ball, stand them up, and you kind of lose all that momentum, like you can't drive.
Yeah.
So when it's done well, after that training and walking away, and the boys thinking, "Holy, are we bloody inventing something new here? Like, is this something really new that Wykes come up with?" And so it's pretty exciting stuff. But Pek's right. It's just something that probably takes time and get it into be second nature, because it's literally in those moments it has to be second nature, or you're going to be too far behind. You're going to lose it anyway.
It's similar to the Brumbies, how they might train it, and then, for example, they might set up a maul like that slip maul, that slip play that we saw earlier, and all that is a good call, right? And they just kind of change the picture up a bit, and they end up scoring. And in this case, it could be, we've got this type of defense, we've got this standard type of defense where everyone comes flying in, which is what the Brumbies would train and practice against each other themselves week in and week out. And then whenever you wanted to, you could be like, "All right, boys, we're bringing in the clinch or whatever it's called, inside our 22." So we're going to show them the pictures, but then inside our 22, they're getting something completely different, but it's something we're quite good at. And it just will change it up so that they won't necessarily know what they're going to do. Then you could have that. You could have, the hook or the grip. You've got the two-man, and you've got your standard defense. And then all of a sudden, they've got three different pictures that they're like, "Hang on, we've only really trained for one particular."
Yeah, very true, bro.
What else is doing? And then all of a sudden, you're like, "Mate, we've got three options here. Conserve our energy, or if we need to play out the half, bang, we're going to just chuck two in there with our hooker. He's going to do the job. We're going to get some line speed off with our backs, with all our back rowers and everyone in that line. Slow down the play, slow down the ruck. They're going to kick it most likely, because that's what they'll do when they don't get any momentum. Try and pin us down there. Away we go again. Play out that half or something like that." So I reckon it's actually there's merit in it, and he's already kind of mentioned it there with Laurie's replies. So it just takes a little bit of work, like anything else.
Yeah, sweet.
Awesome. Love it, boys. So much detail and learning there. And I know a lot of the viewers are going to take so much from that. Plenty of learning. And I guess as a show, we're all about trying to show a bit of an insight from you guys, having been there and sharing your experience around different aspects of the game, and just to settle a few scores. And just to finish off the show, just a final settler, I guess from each of you. We'll start with you, Wykes. From that, just one thing that you can share that you think really settles a score in terms of MAUL defense.
Shit. I think it just getting that bit of detail right beforehand. As I said, like everyone being on the same page, like getting down lower. Not ball watching, looking at, and then trying to get low. So like just all that initial prep before you lead into that hit. I feel like that's a big one. Like if you don't get that height right first, unless if you're doing a specific sort of tactic, I just think you're just gonna lose that battle straight away. So yeah, just those the little detail leading into there.
Nice. Pek?
I think for me is that probably just be a little bit more creative. Just this last section here that we've been talking about, other potential options in terms of defence, especially when it comes to the maul, is don't necessarily do what everyone else is doing because that's what's known. There's merit in trying different things, and I think just making sure that you actually train it, similar to what Sam's kind of said, like making sure you know all your detail, all the little things, they become big things, and all those little things put together, depending on, irrespective of whichever type of style you want to use in defence, MAUL defence, as long as everyone's on that same page and can see the same pictures and can react instantly, I think is key, irrespective of which way you go.
Nice. And Robbie, thank you for all of your insights into your time at the Brumbies and everything you've done. And just one final settler, mate, just to finish us off.
Mate, I think the thing for me is that the exciting thing about this area of the game is, regardless of your skill set, with the right mindset, you can kind of get these skills, put it all together as a team, and create a weapon for your footy team, regardless of what level you're playing at. Whether it's playing bush footy or whatever, or playing at an elite level, whatever level that you're playing at, you can get the skills and be able to make a maul into a weapon and be able to use it as something that can get your team going in the right way to win games.
Awesome. Really appreciate your time, boys. For the viewers, obviously we want to try and provide as much value as we can through the show. So please leave a comment. Make sure you follow us on our socials at The Settler on Facebook and on Instagram. And if there's any areas of the game that you really want the boys to dive and dig into, make sure you let us know, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Cheers, lads.
Cheers, boys.
So this shit bang.
Back streets, the most solo athletes.